Good evening. At this time, would you please silence your cell phones and be advised that these proceedings are being recorded. If you desire to address the City Council during the meeting, please complete a request to speak form available at the front entrance and present it to the City Clerk. Speakers will be called upon at the appropriate time, and each person will be allowed 3 minutes speaking time. This time, I'll call to order City of Grand Terrace City Council meeting for September 24th, 2019. Our invocation tonight will be offered by Reverend Scott Ramsey of VNA Hospice and Palliative Care of Southern California, and he is a Grand Terrace resident. And our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mayor Pro Tem Doug Wilson. If you would please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, we come before you to welcome you into this meeting. We give you the respect and acknowledge you as our creator and provider. As trusted servants, we seek your blessings on all of our deliberations and our efforts here tonight. May we act wisely and well. We ask that you would guide our thoughts and our actions so that we may have a successful meeting today. Help us to accomplish our goals as we seek to make Grand Terrace a better place to live and to work. Bless our efforts and allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Bless our mayor and our council as they serve this community. We pray these things in your mighty and holy and precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Hands of your hearts. Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Ramsey. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. Madam City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Allen.
Present.
Councilmember Hussey.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
I am here.
Mayor McNabo.
Present.
Councilmember Robles is absent.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a special presentation tonight, and it is for a homeowner landscape recognition. I'm going to let Councilmember Jeff Allen talk a little bit about this recognition.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an opportunity that we get as council members, and actually any resident of the city can do this through the city's PIN recognition program, which is what I'm using to recognize this homeowner in particular who has really excelled at creating this beautiful landscape. Now, there are many, many residences here in Grand Terrace and many, many homeowners who take great pride in their landscaping, and I recognize that it's all over the city, hundreds and hundreds of them. And today, I would like to recognize Sergio and Jennifer, and in particular because once the video starts that we took, you'll notice this is Eaton Street. And if you notice on the left, the two-story house, and then the orange house, and then the house with that beautiful Cadillac sitting in front in the driveway is the home that we're recognizing tonight. This is the Gutierrez home. And 3 years ago, when they moved in, this was just a barren yard that needed some real attention. And they have done such a magnificent job of creating this that they inspired their neighbors down the street. And that's what I like to recognize, is how others can be inspired by what their neighbors have accomplished, and it just improves the entire neighborhood. So with that said, I'd like to let Sergio and Jennifer come forward and receive their recognition.
Okay. And so what I have in front of me is a certificate that is going to be presented to Sergio and Jennifer Gutierrez in appreciation of your exceptional care and pride in your landscaping, design, good use of plant variety, texture, color, and overall attention to detail, and consistent care of your property and landscaping, presented this 24th day of September 2019, and it's signed by the entire council. We have this nice certificate suitable for framing, and then we also have lapel pins for you to wear with pride. And when you wear them, you can talk about your home in Grand Terrace. If you would come forward and join the council for a photo.
Madam Mayor, may I also add that through the efforts of our local Chamber of Commerce, we're also happy to offer them a gift certificate from the grocery outlet for $25 and a gift certificate from Woody's Classic Grill.
That's pretty nice. All right. The next item on our agenda is a is the reordering of additions or removal of items from the agenda. And Mr. City Manager, I believe you've added to here that you would like to introduce several new employees at this time.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. For the record, G. Harold Duffy, City Manager. At this time, I would like to recognize a couple new employees that we have. We'll give them a chance to say hello to the council. First of all, we have Josh Manzone. Mr. Manzone is the Executive Assistant to the City Manager and City Council.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak. As Mr. Duffy said, my name is Joshua Manzone. I'm the new executive assistant to the city manager's office. Before this, I was a field representative for Senator Mike Morrell in the 23rd State Senate District. Before that, I was a full-time student at CSUSB and RCC. And on a personal note, I found out recently, me and my wife got confirmation that she is pregnant. So in about 9 to 8 months, I will be a father. So that's exciting.
Yes.
And I've learned a lot already. I've been here a short time, and I'm very happy to be here and be part of the team.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, Mr. Manzone. And congratulations to you and your wife.
Next, we have Shayna Jackson. Ms. Jackson is the management analyst for the finance department.
Good evening, City Council and residents. My name is Shanna Jackson. I'm the new management analyst for the finance department, the City of Grand Terrace. Prior to coming here, I was with Los Angeles County. I was in various departments with them, from Department of Social Services to Health Services. I have experience in contracting, also healthcare administration, customer service. And then prior to that, I also have experience in payroll, human resources, finance, banking, and health insurance brokerages. And I'm excited to be here. I've already learned a slew of new things, and it's great working with everyone, and I'm looking forward to everything that I'll be learning in the future.
Wonderful. We're glad you're here. Welcome, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jorge Negrete, and Mr. Negrete is a maintenance worker too.
Good afternoon, council and residents of Grand Terrace. My name is Jorge Negrete. Before this, I was working for City of West Covina, and I'm here taking care of your streets, your parks, facilities. So if you guys see me in the street, I'm the guy to bug if you guys have any issues. Thank you.
All right. Welcome, Mr. Negrete. We're glad you're here.
And next, we have Leila Holtzen, a senior code officer. I hope I didn't butcher your last name. Holtzen. Okay, there we go.
Good evening, I'm happy to be here. My background is I worked in animal control and care for San Bernardino County for 10 years. And then I went to Orange County and worked animal care and control for 3 years. And then I was able to go to code enforcement for Orange County for about a year and a half. And I'm very grateful to be here. This is such a wonderful commute, first of all, on a personal level. But also, I really enjoy this city. It's a beautiful city. I didn't spend much time in Grand Terrace. I grew up in Fontana. I didn't spend much time out here, but it's the people are very nice, very kind, close-knit community. And my goal is to be a benefit to the town as a whole and help raise our neighborhoods up to a whole nother level of just safe, happy, good times in Grand Terrace. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holtzen. Welcome. We're glad that you're here.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say I'm extremely excited about the new employees. I think they're bringing a very positive attitude, and they're very much into customer service. And that's extremely important as we deliver the services to the citizens of Grand Terrace. And so I think that will be a great compliment to our existing employees, and I'm so excited that they're on board.
All right, thank you, Mr. Duffy. We'll move to our next item, which is the consent calendar. And our consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the City Council at one time without discussion. However, any council member, staff member, or citizen may request removal of an item from the consent calendar for discussion. Are there any requests to remove any items from the consent calendar? Councilmember Allen.
Item 5, please.
All right, any others? All right, I'll entertain a motion for the balance.
Motion approved, Mayor.
Second.
Okay, so motion for items 1 through 4 on consent calendar by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson and second by Councilmember Allen. Please vote.
Motion passes with council members Allen and Hussey voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNabo voting yes.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Allen? have
Thank you, Mayor. On packet page 111, I don't know to whether to direct this to Ms. Fortune or, because Lieutenant Wolf's not here, but I wanted to ask about, there's 2 checks to the Sheriff's Department. One is for the routine July and August law enforcement services for $345,531. And then there's also a check for $28,632 for overtime law enforcement services. And I'd just like to know how many hours of overtime that $28,600 covered, and sort of, I mean, was that expected overtime? I mean, or a little explanation on why we're paying overtime. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Allen. That $28,000 are for several things. There is expected overtime for the Housing Authority because we have a program that we had started for a quality of life, so we have that. And this is their additional expenses on top of the contract. So every quarter, they actually submit an invoice for vehicle maintenance, expense, labor parts, fuel. Yeah, that is not included in the monthly contract that we submit. So this $28,000 is for the quarter.
Okay, let me just interject something right there, because I remember reading the contract. Vehicle maintenance is, I think that is included in the annual contract, but I'll go back and look. I don't want to bring it up now. So the $28,600, that's for the HOPE program, and mostly?
Part of it. 8,000 is for the HOPE program.
8,000.
8,000.
Of the 28,000.
Of the 28,000.
Okay.
13,000 is for vehicle maintenance, fuel, outside labor parts for anything that they had to do. And the other 7,000 was for overtime they did during their general course for the quarter. Remember, this is for a 3-month period, not just 1 month.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I distinctly remember that when we discussed the the sheriff's contract, that there was vehicle maintenance listed in there, but I'll go back and look at it again between now and our next meeting. But that's what I wanted to find out, what that 28,600 is for. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. As long as we have the check register pulled, I have two questions. One is on packet page 130. I'm looking at check number 76597 to the city of Loma Linda. It's 2004, 2002 Ford Ranger, $7,730. Did we purchase vehicles from Loma Linda? Very old vehicles from Loma Linda?
Yes, Mayor. What we received was there were two vehicles that Loma Linda had for surplus. And as you are aware, we have 4 maintenance workers and only 3 vehicles. So the one maintenance vehicle, the one truck that we did acquire from Loma Linda has a cab over it, and it's a really good product for us. And so because the expense was a minimal expense, I have the authority to acquire that vehicle. And then we also they had an additional vehicle that our code enforcement officer uses. It's a pickup truck, so it also allows them to pick up dead animals without it going into the van.
But they're in good operating condition?
They're in excellent condition. We went over, we checked them out, and we got a great bargain.
Okay, sounds like it. All right, packet page 134, item 76615. To Rancho Cucamonga for a countywide study, $1,253. What kind of countywide study, and do we get to see results of that?
Mr. French will answer that question for you, Mayor.
Yes, good evening, Mayor. Alan French, Public Works. That's for, Rancho Cucamonga is taking the lead on our vehicle mile travel study that we're in, we are joining them with other agencies in the county to do this countywide study. And we will be able to utilize those recommendations for our projects within the city for traffic mitigation. This is to comply with the new Senate bill coming up requiring us to change our mitigations from level of service to vehicle miles traveled.
When do we expect to see the results of the study?
Right now, they're in the process of gathering the data. So we will probably have a first draft before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Mr. French, I might understand that this is like a regional study? In other words, it's more pertaining freeways and so on, not localized? No, sir. It's going to be. It is a area study for the whole county, but it addresses the local roadways, not the freeway alignments. And it's pertaining to trips per day? Trips and, yes, instead of trips per day, they're going to be measuring vehicle miles traveled is the new standard. 10-4, thank you.
All right. That's the last question on that. You have another question, Councilmember Allen? Please do.
I'll make a motion on item 5, pass item 5.
All right. So a motion to approve the check register, and I'll second that. Please vote.
Motion passes with Council Members Allen and Hussey voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNabo voting yes.
Thank you. Do we have items for general public comment? Okay, so we'll open the public comment. This is for items not on the regular agenda. It's an opportunity for the public to comment on those. Any item pertaining to the city of Grand Terrace that is not on our agenda for tonight. Because of restrictions contained in California law, City Council may not discuss or act on any item not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask a question for clarification. A brief response may be requested from staff to questions raised, and a matter may be agendized for a future meeting. Our first request to speak is Sergio and Jennifer Gutierrez. Would you like to speak when we talk about the actual landscape? Okay, I'll save that for that particular one, since it is kind of similar to what's on the agenda. So we'll go with Jeffrey McConnell.
Jeffrey McConnell, 21758 Walnut Avenue. Warms my heart to see that you're scouring the check register and looking for any items that may not be necessary. Every year it goes by, we are a world global economy more and more and more and more. I follow the global economy, and the global economy is not in good shape. Germany at the end of this quarter is going into officially into a recession. Inflation in Argentina is up 50%. Brazil's in trouble, Italy's in trouble. Italy's threatening to leave the EU. China's really in trouble, even though they lie about it. The recession is coming, election is coming, and before an election, everybody gets nervous. All the financial wizards are saying there's a recession coming, almost as if they want it to come. So what bothers me is that all the meetings I come to, I'm sorry, I missed the last meeting, but I did watch it, and for this last year, I've seen the budget has only got like 2 months reserves, and it's been troubling me ever since, and I don't think that's very good management for this city, any city. And every time there's extra money found, there's always a rush to spend it, whether it's on projects in town or 5 additional employees the city manager wanted, according to 2 months ago in a PowerPoint presentation I saw. I think there should be more of a rush to start putting some money into the reserves. Now, I'm sure when I sit down, they'll say that there's money stashed away, but like I said, every time there's money found, it seems that people have a rush to spend it. On another note, not so bright, the old Stater Brothers warehouse complex, now called Lineage, has been in escrow for a month by a large corporation that wishes to tear everything down from G. Berry, which is south of Barton there at the end of La Crosse, all the way to Walnut Avenue right across the street from me, and from railroad to railroad, that would be the abandoned UP, all the way to the active tracks. They plan on tearing everything down between those, within that quadrant, and including abandoning Terrace Avenue within that quadrant, and building a very large trucking facility with lots of warehouses and trucks coming and going. That is on the west side, and as you know, most of the wind comes from the west. And I hope Grand Terrace Elementary School is aware of this. I hope they've caught wind of it, so to speak. And because I'm sure that, if I recall the letter they sent to the council several months ago, they're worried about any development to the west of their school, elementary school over there, or any other school for that matter. So I just wanted to be aware, make sure you're aware of it, because all the trucks are going to use our brand new roundabout and freeway off-ramp, and it's going to create lots of emissions.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Our next speaker is Bobby Forbes.
Thank you. I have 3 items. A few days ago, last week I had multiple incidences on the west side of the freeway on Barton Road. Can you hear me? On Barton Road, just when you cross over the freeway, where we used to go left to go south on the 215, well, now you go right to go on the 215. So now there's 2 lanes to go straight towards my house into one. I spoke to Mr. French. I requested something be done about it. Nothing's been done about it yet. It's his department, but he's not going to go paint them because that's Caltrans probably, I'm guessing, okay? Nothing's been done with it, but I've had 3 incidences so far where I've tried each lane and somebody's almost clipped me, you know? So, and I'm testing the waters, but there needs to be some arrows one way or another at that location. I'd like to know what the follow-up is on the business licenses, because 6 months ago, there was a big to-do about business licenses and people not having them that had been here forever, and possibly changing the person that, or the company that was taking care of that. I'd like to know what has occurred with that. And third, I'd like to congratulate the homeowners on Brentwood. That's a wonderful thing. Many years ago, the city would give a sign that would go in the front yard. And the plaque is nice. That's cute. But that's in their house. Nobody knows they got it. So maybe you would consider getting a sign that says they are awarded this, and they get to keep it for a month or something. Because then the neighbors see that, and then they might do something else. You know, when a cleaning lady comes in a neighborhood and starts doing the windows on a house, everybody else gets their house windows done too, just like a roofer or anything else. It creates things to change. And you mentioned this, but I would like to acknowledge it again, that I think this is great that you've brought this back. Whoever's idea it was, Jeff, I think it was you. So thank you, and I'm sure you were here back in the day when we did that. Guess that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forbes. Any other requests to speak at this time?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, we'll close public comment and come to our council communications. We'll begin with Councilmember Jeff Allen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to take an opportunity first and foremost to welcome Jorge, Joshua, Ms. Jackson, Ms. Holstein, the new employees to our city. We needed them desperately, and we're so glad you're here, and I'm anxious to work together with you. Since our last council meeting, I went to the Chamber of Commerce, hosted a breakfast at Woody's where we were introduced again to Eric and Priscilla Santillan, the owner-operators of the new grocery outlet. And I was excited to hear an update on the progress that's being made on our one of our newest businesses coming into town. And if you've had a chance to go by over there and see the work that's being done, it's looking really well. And I'm excited to be able to go over there before Thanksgiving and do some shopping. I'm hoping for. Now, also, that same day, that evening, I went to the League of California Cities quarterly division meeting at the Ontario Convention Center. And the presentations and discussions that evening centered around the unfunded liabilities issues that cities are faced with still, and some of the, shall we say, creative ways that some of our sister cities around here have come up with dealing with that issue. And so if you're interested in those, I'm sure that you can find that information out from them. And so there was one more thing, but I can't think of it. So that'll do it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Bill Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Just a little personal thing. I went on an honor flight with my wife's grandfather. He's a Korean War veteran and two-time Purple Heart winner. And honor flight, if you don't know what it is, it's to honor veterans who, World War II, Korea War, Vietnam, any veterans. So they get to go to Washington, D.C. and see the memorials and the monuments. It makes for a long day, but these guys enjoyed it. Their expenses are paid. The Guardians, which I was a Guardian, we pay for our own expense, but you know, it's well worth it. We had two Army guys there that served underneath General Patton, so it was really neat. The history that I got to hear. One was 98 years old, one was 96 years old, so they still doing pretty good. One of the guys, his tank got blown up in the African campaign, and it took him 5 hours to get him out, and he was paralyzed for 2 months, but it's a miracle he could walk. So it was a really quiet experience. It was really neat. We landed in Baltimore, and everybody's clapping for us. You know, these guys were in tears because a lot of the World War II vets and everybody else, they didn't have a welcome home. They were staying home at the campaign and stuff. So they really felt appreciated. And when we came back, we landed in Ontario. We had a lot of volunteers from Grand Terrace come and meet us, and it made my heart feel good. And these guys, you know, they loved the monuments. They loved that, but they loved the camaraderie, and they loved the love that was poured out to them that day. And it made me really feel good. And our Girl Scout troops were there. Like I said, a lot of volunteers. Everybody was there that could be that. You know, I was just happy seeing it. And these guys were overwhelmed, and you see they still had tears in their eyes, and you know, and the camaraderie and everything. But the honor flights ran over. It's run by a lady in our city, Marva X, and she lives over here in out of Princeton, and she runs the honor flight. So if you guys have any veterans that are in your family members, look at Honor Flight Inland Empire and pull up the application and submit it. And they do fundraisers throughout the year and everything, and it's all expense paid. And if you want to be a Guardian, you can also submit the paperwork. And it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I mean, you get to hear all the stories and just see the love that they have for their country. So it's the Honor Flight Inland Empire. And if you pull it up and you have any veterans, they would love to have them there. And hopefully we could do something with our senior center, and I know we have vets there, and maybe get with the coordinator on that to see if any of our vets can go. But it's a great time and great experience, and I'll talk about more later. But thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight, and God bless.
Thank you, Councilmember Hussey. Mayor Pro Tem Doug Wilson.
I have nothing for general publication, so I will defer to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a couple things. They're San Bernardino County Transportation Authority related. On the 11th of September, we held our General Policy Committee meeting, and we looked at a few things for recommendation to the board. One of them was a Freeway Service Patrol tow services contract extensions, one to Steve's Towing for Freeway Service Patrol Beat 27, and Pomona Valley Towing for Freeway Service Patrol Beat number 5. These are the tow trucks that are on the freeway that will help you to get out of traffic when you break down on the freeway, if that should happen to you. Yes, you do have cell phones, but they roam the freeway looking to help stranded motorists, and they a lot of times show up faster than anybody else because they're already out there. We recommended that the board award a contract to Elcor Belco Electric for the electric vehicle infrastructure project that is part of the San Bernardino County Council of Governments. We recommended a resolution to execute a program supplemental agreements for our electronic format for specific state-funded projects. In other words, we now allow our executive director to use electronic format for submissions of state-funded project proposals and grant improvements. We recommended to the board to approve a contract with Lyft for a 12-month term. This is a pilot program for private transportation to and from the Ontario International Airport, and that is to help people that are riding public transit to have an opportunity to get a ride from their train directly into Ontario. So for the Metro Valley Study Session on the 12th, we reviewed and recommended a number of items. One was final approval of a resolution authorizing the funding. It was a Interstate 10 corridor contract project procurement. They found that a contractor had submitted a proposal, and they had like over 60 subcontractors, and they did not list all of them, and that becomes a problem when a contractor actually applies for a bid. They estimate how much the subcontractors are going to charge when they don't actually have actual submissions from subcontractors, because then if they go and shop the bids and get something less expensive from those subcontractors, they end up keeping the difference in what they are awarded versus what they needed to pay out. And so it turned out that they actually did have the real responses from the subcontractors, but the procurement process precluded them from listing every single one of them, but they did turn in a sheet. So we did recommend that that be approved. We also recommended the operation and maintenance agreement with the California Department of Toxic Substances for the remediation of property here in Grand Terrace, and that is part of the 215 interchange program. There used to be a dry cleaner over by the shopping center that was to the west of the freeway, and that has some remediation that needs to be done. We recommended final approval on a release for request for proposals for plan specifications and estimates for the Interstate 15 corridor contract project, and we also received an update on the Riverside County Transportation Commission Coachella Valley San Gregorio Pass Rail Project. But more importantly, I was able to attend last Thursday the 50th anniversary of a local paper called El Chicano newspaper. It is now part of the Inland Empire Community News Group, and they serve the cities of Colton, Grand Terrace, Highland, Loma Linda, Redlands, Rialto, San Bernardino. They started at a time when they found that certain stories weren't being covered, certain local stories, and they've dedicated themselves and their newspaper group now to covering local news, which we miss a lot in the Inland Empire when we are relying on the Los Angeles-owned papers newspapers, and radio. So congratulations to Gloria Macias and Bill Harrison on their 50th anniversary, and I look forward to how they plan to focus on the upcoming ways of covering local news as a format change is underway. And that's the last thing that I have. So we'll move back to our agenda, which is item 6 is our next item. That is an ordinance amending Title VI, Animals, of the Grand Terrace Municipal Code by repealing in their entirety Chapter 6.04 and Chapter 6.08 and adopting a new Chapter 6.04, Animal Control, and a new Chapter 6.08, Animal Licensing and Vaccinations. Sandra Molina, Planning and Development Services Director.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. As indicated by the mayor, this is council's consideration of an animal control ordinance. This item is consistent with our city's 2030 vision statement to preserve and protect our community and its exceptional quality of life through thoughtful planning within the constraints of a fiscally responsible government. This item was also identified as a top priority project on the list of 2019-2020 priority projects adopted by the City Council earlier this year. So a bit of background. On April 9th of this year, the City Council considered this item for adoption to amend 2 chapters in our animal control title in the municipal code. And based on the public input that we received, the City Council asked us to go back and have a community meeting to discuss the proposed ordinance. And so we did have that community workshop on April 30th. We sent out flyers to, we posted flyers on our website and social media. We had about 40 people, just under 40 people attend and provide their input. So subsequently on May 14th, we came back to the City Council and informed the council of the points that were brought up during the meeting. And we had a discussion about those items. And again, we have public input. And at the conclusion of that meeting, the City Council directed staff to look at particular items. And so that's what we're doing here this evening, looking at those items that the council asked us to look at. For purposes of this evening's meeting, staff did reach out to all the persons that signed in at that community workshop in our sign-in list. We also posted this flyer on our social media and our website. So probably one of the most discussed topic for the ordinance was the number of dogs permitted in the city. And so our current ordinance allows each residential dwelling unit to have 2 dogs, maximum of 2 dogs, and a maximum of 2 cats, and that's it. And so based upon the input, residents wanted to have more dogs, and the City Council asked us to look at increasing that, and also consider the size of the parcel in doing that. The council may recall that probably about 3 years ago, we also looked at maybe changing the number of dogs to 4, and at that time, we didn't make any changes. And so based upon what we were looking at last time, what different cities are doing, the San Bernardino County does have the number of animals based upon lot size. And so just in consideration of the types of units we have, this is what staff is recommending to the City Council. When it comes to attached residential units such as apartments or duplexes or condos, staff is not recommending any changes to the existing number of animals permitted, so it would stay as is. But when we have detached residential units, meaning a single-family home on a lot less than 20,000 square feet, we're recommending that the council consider a maximum of 4 animals, whether it's dogs, cats, or a combination, but no more than 4. But then when a single-family residential unit is located on a lot that's 20,000 square feet or more in size, then the council consider a maximum of 5 animals, dogs or cats, or any combination thereof. So that's what's being recommended by staff. The council had also asked us back in May to consider the number of animals that could be allowed when a person is either a rescue or fostering or breeding animals. And staff is recommending, based upon a few of the cities that we contacted, that we don't change the number of animals that a person can have if they're fostering or if they're breeding, they can do that, but as long as they stay within the allotment that is ultimately decided by the city council. So that's what we're recommending for that. One of the things that came up during our community meeting and we discussed back in May is what happens if a person has their allotted number of animals, but then they have a family member that is in the military and gets deployed. And so what we ended up doing is that we added language in our ordinance that would allow the city to give a temporary license allowing a dog, an animal in excess of the maximum number permitted when a service person is deployed, or if there's a senior resident whose animal needs to be taken care of due to illness or death. So that would be no fee, temporary 6 months, and if needed, then we would have to, we could extend it again. One of the things we talked about is having the dog licensing period coincide with the rabies expiration date. So that's what, we made that change, and that's something easily we can do. With regard to breeding, that is considered a business, and so if a resident is breeding, then they would be required to have a home occupation permit and a business license. The other thing, so these are other chapters we looked at. And in our chapter 6.04, animal control, we did do a comprehensive update. We provided provisions for animal care, animal waste, animal noise, and nuisance animals. And so animal noise is not just barking dogs, it'd be crowing roosters and things like that. And then we also have a provision for wild and exotic reptiles. With regard to those type of animals, in our zoning code, the only district that allows wild or exotic animals is in our agricultural district, overlay district. So with that, staff is recommending that the city council direct our city attorney to read the title of the ordinance, waive further reading, and introduce the ordinance for consideration for adoption at the next meeting. With that, I will conclude my presentation and be happy to respond to any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Director Molina. I have a question about breeding. We're only allowing breeding of dogs and cats unless there's an agricultural overlay?
Well, yes, correct, in the sense that the agricultural overlay district already allows animals, and it allows a number of animals based upon the size of the lot, and it also distinguishes between small animals and larger animals, and then horses, things like that.
Okay. The only reason I ask is under the definition of breeder, it specifically talks about dogs and cats.
Okay.
And so if there's an agricultural overlay, then there's a different section of the code that one would look in for provisions that apply there?
Yes.
Okay. And then as far as exotic animals, those are only allowed in the agricultural overlay, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right, thank you. Questions of staff at this time? Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Director Molina. On section 6.04 about disposition of dead animals, and it just says that the owner will follow all the lawful means in accordance with state and local law, but what are those? What is the law state, the disposition of a dead animal because it just says that they should either incinerate, burn, or otherwise dispose of it. Can they just put it in the garbage?
Well, my understanding is they could bury them in their yard, but many times, a few times, we've had residents call us and we've assisted them with disposing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, further questions? Councilmember Hussey.
Ms. Williams, can you explain what the occupational permit is for residents?
Yes, so a home occupation permit is a permit that allows certain home-based businesses. And really the criteria for us is that it's a business that doesn't bring customers to the home. So you can do an office. We've had contractors have their home office there. And so when a person comes in and wants to do home-based business, we will send out notices to adjacent property owners, letting them know what the business is, and give them an opportunity to respond. We would set conditions on that home occupation permit and then approve it. And as long as they are occupying that residence, they're allowed to maintain the home occupation permit. They get a business license, and that's renewed annually.
So you said they can't bring customers to their house?
As part of the home occupation permit, correct.
So when the people come and pick up the dog or animal, would they have to have neutral location to meet?
Or yes, or they could go to the person's home.
Okay. And on the breeders, for the dogs or some, I know we have set criteria for how many animals we could have on a certain square feet. With breeders, are we setting the same criteria? Do they have to have a certain size? Because, you know, of course you can't have breeders inside condos, and I don't know about some of these small
Well,
homes.
excuse me, I'm sorry. We are not limited it to the parcel size. We're limited it to the same number of dogs anybody else can have. Because you do have to license your dogs over 4 months old. Anything less than that isn't licensed, but you can't have it after 4 months, or you license it.
Okay. On the business license, are we doing something with code to check to make sure these animals aren't any cruelty to them? Or are we doing like inspections?
We would not do inspections. It would be just like any other resident who had dogs and they ended up having puppies. But what would happen is we would address this in the same way that we address any other code issue. If we're getting phone calls that there's excessive dogs or barking or animal waste or things like that, we can then begin a code case to do an inspection on the property.
Okay, because I just want to make sure, because, you know, if we have a business out on our main street and they're not complying, I want to make sure the breeders are in the same compliance, you know, that they could be, somebody could file on them or something if they're not staying within the regulations and making it unbearable for the residents and also conditions for the animals. So that was my concern.
Yes, we would have a mechanism to inspect.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
One more question. On packet page 153, under your definitions, it would be item CC. Vicious dog means, and there's been some red lines, and under number 1, it says, any dog which unprovoked in an aggressive manner inflicts severe injury, as defined in this chapter, on or kills a human being and then it couples with Section 2, and it talks about potentially dangerous dogs. The only thing I'm concerned about is that it has a tinge of after-the-fact mitigation, and just by looking at it on face value, it's as if it's unprovoked and it's in an aggressive manner, and it, you know, kills somebody or severe injures them. Then, of course, that's called a vicious dog, and the duties and powers of animal control officers take over. But I'm a little concerned that it doesn't have enough teeth in it. You know, there's got to be something in relation to proactive.
So those are the definitions that are in the California laws under animal laws. So that's where those definitions come from. But in the chapter itself, and starting on page 160, we have provisions for public nuisance animals, and so those would be animals that get out a lot, or they get out and they're aggressive, or any other type of nuisance. And so we have a provision to address that. And also we have provisions on stamp page 162 to address potentially dangerous and vicious dogs. And so those are provisions we didn't have before, and so these provisions would kick in. The other ones were just the definitions.
I think it might be appropriate for us to have a person, whoever that person is, that in their opinion, it could pose a reasonable threat to safety. Click, and that's when it happens. Because at this juncture, there isn't anything that really puts somebody between the dog and the person that's going to get injured, other than, you know, I understand, I'm glad the state does stuff, couldn't care less, because I don't believe that the state really looks after us. So in the long run, I think it'd be good if there was either the animal enforcement officer or somebody was pegged as, this is a problem, we need to take care of it.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, and on page 162 for potentially dangerous and vicious dogs, it starts with a determination. So when the animal control officer determines that there exists probable cause, so that gives I believe this addresses what you're asking for.
Gotcha, good. That'll work. Which item?
The top of the very top, paragraph A. So
Got
the
it,
animal,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I see it in the first sentence. Is this probable cause to believe that a dog is potentially dangerous or vicious? Good. That'll work.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions? All right, we'll open public comment, and I know that there was an email that was sent in. Madam City Clerk, if you would like to summarize that.
Yes, today we received an email from Commissioner Jeremy Briggs, and he wanted to provide his opinion on the animals allowed per household. It is his desire that the council consider increasing the amount of dogs to 4 as well as cats to 4 for a total of 8 per property.
All right, thank you. And do we have a request to speak on this item? Thank you. We'll start with Sean Tanaka.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council for this opportunity to speak. I'm a former dog owner. I've owned dogs for maybe 20 years cumulatively and partially concurrently, meaning I've owned 2 dogs at the same time. But today I'm arguing against increasing the potential amount of dogs from 4 to 2. And that's because of 3 basic reasons. One being that not all owners are equally responsible. 2, not all dogs are well-mannered. And 3, some of us live very close to each other. So, there's a lot of reasons to not increase the amount of dogs, but I'll focus on the barking aspect. And a lot of us live very close to each other. Some of us even have shared walls. Some houses' windows are closer than the distance I am to you speaking. And you could probably hear me just with my talking voice, even without the microphone. So I'm saying that it's potentially worse to have more dogs, 4 dogs, because of 3 kind of basic reasons I've determined. One is that if you increase the amount of dogs, the dogs don't always get along together, and they feud sometimes. So that means that 2 dogs would argue, but 4 dogs arguing is even bigger problem, right? Dogs are pack animals. So they have a mentality that if one is upset at something, then the others can jump in, and then they'll argue more, and then it just kind of intensifies the barking problem. Third is that if a dog barks for 5 minutes in an hour, that's reasonable to me. But if there's 4 dogs and they all bark at 5 minutes apiece, then you're talking about 20 minutes. And 20 minutes of an hour is quite a bit of time, and that's just 1 hour. We gotta live a whole day. We live a whole lot of time at our places. And kind of what I'm getting at also is that, if you're not the dog owner, right, you're in a forced relationship with this dog or dogs, right? Meaning that, you have to listen to the barking, or you have to deal with the feces or whatever that the more dogs have next door, right? And it's not just a nuisance issue is what I'm getting at also, is that one, it can affect health, it could affect your profession, it could affect your property value, meaning health, sleep. Everybody knows that it's well connected to health. Profession, if you can't function well at work, that's a big effect. Also, some people work from home. Property value, if you're trying to sell your house and there's 4 barking dogs next door, I'm not very interested in that house. So I'm arguing that not that people don't have dogs, but also that the neighbor who doesn't have dogs, gets to have the quality of life also that is good, some peace and quiet and the ability to enjoy their own property, Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tanaka. All right, our next speaker's request is from Sandy Lewis, but she is having her words read by Bobby Forbes, who will then separately speak. So keep this to Sandy Lewis's.
Okay, thank you. Sandy Lewis is a 34-year resident. She lives at 22561 Cardinal Street in Grand Terrace. She grew up here. Her husband's in the audience, but I'm speaking for her. The message she sent me says, I never knew there was a limit on the number of cats in the home. I have lived in Grand Terrace 34 years. I've never seen or heard of this law, 34-year law. Why would you count cats since you don't have them licensed? I have many friends here in Grand Terrace that have 4 or more cats in addition to 2 or 3 dogs. Allowing a total of 4 pets in any combination doesn't change the number of pets they will have. I thought this was all about dogs, not cats. This is ridiculous. Are you going to send the pet patrol door to door to check for cats like you did for dogs? You better get started quick, because you're going to find a lot of unclaimed cats outside on the streets. The people that let their dogs continuously bark or cause a nuisance should be the ones that are limited in number of pets, not the responsible pet owners. And she does say I can add to that, but I'm not going to. So that's the end of her message to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lewis, as read by Bobby Forbes. Now our next speaker is Bobby Forbes.
Bobby Forbes, 11850 Burns Avenue. I have a couple of questions. I would like to know if the chips are still offered when you do a dog licensing at $20. Does anyone know?
I'll ask that as a follow-up. Please
Okay.
speak. Thank you.
They were doing it at $20. When you register your dog, you pay $20, then go down to Loma Linda Animal Hospital and you could have it put in, or when you did that yearly shot clinic or something. I think that's a good thing, but you can go to the Humane Society and get it for $30, or you can go to Dr. Sig's for $40 if it's no longer available. I like the fact that they've changed the time period to go with the rabies shots. It might be more work for the staff, but I think it will be less confusing for the public, so I appreciate that change. And does code enforcement pick up after 5 or 6 o'clock or 5:30 for dead animals or animals that need to go to the shelter or are injured on the street? And are the big birds that make a lot of noise considered exotic birds? I know there's quite a few of them in Grand Terrace. I hear them in my neighborhood. They're loud like the peacocks. But I don't know. Are they considered pets or regular pets, or are they exotic that you would have to have agricultural? Because there's a lot of them up in the Foxboroughs in that neighborhood. I think that's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forbes. And that's the last request to speak that I have, so I will close public comment and bring it back to council for their considerations. But I will ask Director Molina if you would address those questions.
Yes, Madam Mayor. With regard to the chips, the last 2 times we did not offer that because we found that we weren't selling very many. We sold like between 2 to 5, and so we stopped doing that. Our animal control officers are on call after hours. We will respond to an injured animal, an animal running, in the streets. That's a safety issue. Dead animal pickup, we'll wait till the next day.
How do we contact
So-
code enforcement after hours?
Animal control is contacted after hours by contacting Sheriff's Dispatch. Sheriff's Dispatch will then contact the on-call officer. And then with regard to the big birds, I'm not clear on what big birds those are, but I'm happy to speak to Ms. Forbes after this meeting.
All right, thank you. All right. Councilmember Allen.
Mayor, I'm prepared to make a recommendation.
All right, what's your motion?
Direct the city attorney to read the title of the ordinance, waive further reading, and introduce. Do I need to read it all, or am I directing him to do it?
You can direct him to do it.
All right.
All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Allen for staff recommendation. I have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. Is there any further discussion?
I like to remove the cats.
Councilmember Hussey.
I'm sorry, I like to take the cats off. I don't think you can't count the cats. I think we should remove that from the ordinance and just go with the dogs, because we only license the dogs. We have no, I don't know, we're going to start licensing cats too. I mean, does anybody have their cat license?
That's a good point. I want to know how it's enforced and how do you...
Cats are, it's an option. You can get a license and you can get them.
But they aren't necessarily considered domesticated. In fact, if we're not licensing them, how are we tracking them? It's not like they register the color of the pattern of their fur so that you could be sure that you had a certain cat. And cats that are outside in yards, are that the same as having cats inside the home?
Yes, Mayor. Now, one of the questions that you might want to examine is if you remove the cat issue, does that then allow you to have 4 dogs and a limited number of,
I think Councilmember Hussey was asking for the limit of 4 dogs and then just not, and being silent on the number of cats. Is that?
Correct.
Madam Mayor, it's better for staff to have a number, a threshold by which to address if there's issues that come up. So I would suggest that rather than leave it open-ended, at least provide some number, if it's 4 and 4, or 4 dogs, 5 cats. Just looking at other cities, for instance, Loma Linda does limit at 4 cats. Redlands has 6 cats. Excuse me, I'm sorry, 3 cats. County Riverside says a maximum of 9 cats. So everybody's all over the place.
Is that in addition to the dogs?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Allen. Thank you, Director Molina.
I think that there should be some reference at least to cats. There needs to be some sort of control. And I'm not saying to register them, but what I'm saying is that there are neighbors of mine who have mentioned to me that there are places where people who collect cats, and they collect them and keep them indoors, or they keep them in their backyards, and but the cats roam, you know. And so, but there are the folks who do collect cats. And so, like the first resident who spoke, talked about the quality of life for the neighbors of dog owners. There is a resident on Brentwood Street who has talked about the quality of his life from a neighbor on Eaton Street. So, cats can become a nuisance. That possibility does exist.
Well, and I think what Director Molina's point is that depending on the resident and the number of cats they choose to have, that can pose a health issue as well as a nuisance. And for you to enforce anything, staff needs a particular number. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Councilmember Hussey, do you have a suggested number?
Well, then I suggest 4 and 4, like Mr. Briggs recommended, for the dog placement and the cats, if we needed a cat count. Because I understand, we don't want somebody that's 100 cats in the house. It'd be a health hazard. I understand that. And I just understand also it's hard to count cats. They kind of have a mind of their own. I don't think they belong to anybody. They just do what they want. But I'm not a cat person, but I've seen it. But I do like cats because they keep, Grand Terrace does have rats problems in this area, and they do have rodent problems. But I know a lot of people have a couple cats. I'm not saying I haven't seen anybody with 10 or 20 cats, but, I understand we need a set number. But I like the recommendation 4 dogs and 4 cats. I don't think that's too much, but I also, I understand this gentleman's issue over here is about the barking dogs and stuff. I'm sure code enforcement will take care of that issue if we have numerous complaints, and then we'll have to address that, because I don't want to hear a whole bunch of dogs barking. My dogs bark, they even bark at me when I come home. I don't know why, but they bark at me, and they're barking right at me when they look at me. I'm like, what are you barking at? But I know a number of times that the dogs have barked in our neighborhood that kept people away from breaking into homes, so I don't know if they're barking at me, telling me, hey, somebody was trying to come by or what. I don't understand, but I understand if somebody's trying to work, and they work nights, and they don't want a nuisance dog, and we have that in the ordinance for that, to take care of that issue.
Okay.
So I think 4 and 4, Mayor.
All right. I currently have a motion and a second for staff recommendation. Is there an alternate motion?
I'd like to make an alternate motion to add, to make the 4 dogs and 4 cats at a dwelling. Or
Is there a second to that motion? Okay, please vote on the original motion.
Before we do, I'm going to read the title of the ordinance. So the title is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Grand Terrace, amending Title 6 of the Grand Terrace Municipal Code by repealing in their entirety Chapter 6.04 and Chapter 6.08, and adopting a new Chapter 6.04, Animal Control, and a new Chapter 6.08, Animal Licensing and Vaccinations. Please vote.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney, for keeping us straight.
No problem.
Motion passes with Council Members Allen, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, and Mayor McNabo voting yes. Councilmember Hussey votes no.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 7, which is a discussion of potential homeowner landscape recognition program. Director Molina.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I do believe I have a presentation for that. Item H7. So, yes. So, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, this item does support our 2030 vision. That Grand Terrace is an exceptionally safe and well-managed city known for its natural beauty and recreational opportunities. It's a place where residents enjoy an outstanding quality of life that fosters pride. So just give the council a bit of a background. On February 12th, the City Council approved a process for future agenda items requests by council members. Councilmember Allen requested a future agenda item to consider a mechanism or program to recognize homeowners that improve their property. And on May 28th, the council voted to bring this item back for a discussion. So this slide, I apologize, it's kind of small to read, but this is the process that the City Council approved. So a item's placed on the agenda as a future item, and so the council considers that, and if they direct us to bring it back, we do, but if they don't take action to do that, there's no further action. So in this particular instance, the council did vote to bring it back, so we're here to discuss the item and get input and direction from the council, and the council will either direct us to not move forward or to move forward with a policy. So in discussing this item on the 24th, or very briefly, Councilmember Allen indicated that he did want the council to consider some sort of mechanism by which to recognize property owners that improve their property, more specifically improve their landscaping. And he did indicate that the program could be a very simple program that the council would identify property owners to recognize, or there could be a more formalized process. And so, as indicated in the staff report, we are asking that the City Council determine as a whole who will determine who receives recognition, or whether each council member is authorized to identify someone to recognize, and then have that placed as a presentation, or if the council would want to tell us how often they would want that recognition process to take place. It could be quarterly, annually, whatever interval the council would want to consider, and whether the council desires to establish objective standards for recognition. And so, and I guess the other item that's not really on here is that, or if the council does want us to move forward or not move forward. In either event, if the council were to determine they wanted to use an informal program similar to what happened this evening with the presentation, the council may want to consider at least some sort of standards that the fellow members, council members would use. That concludes my presentation, and we're happy to receive some city council direction. If the council directs us to move forward with the policy, we'll bring that back for the council.
Thank you, Director Molina. Are there questions of staff at this time? All right, seeing none, I'll open it to public comment, and I do have a request to speak from Sergio and Jennifer Gutierrez.
Hello, my name is Jennifer. We've been residents of Grand Terrace going on 4 years now, and we're very happy to live here. We don't have any plans on leaving. I just want to say that landscaping is kind of the face of your home, the cover of your book. You want people who are driving through your neighborhood, maybe new potential home buyers, to have a positive outlook on the city and the sense of community. So I think it's very important to put a program forward for neighbors to kind of have an incentive to, you know, want to kind of improve their landscaping. A lot of people don't know where to start with that. So to put some type of incentive out there is kind of exciting for people, because then that gives them a sense of direction on where to go. And it just improves the quality of our city in general. You want people to leave the city having a really positive outlook. And that's all I have to say, so I'm going to pass it to Sergio.
Good evening. My name is Sergio Gutierrez. First of all, thank you, Jeff. It was a surprise to hear my door knock and have him at my front door, but it was a good surprise because we put a lot of hard work and time and effort and love and passion into our home, and I think it shows. We weren't expecting this, but it's a great feeling to get that kind of recognition. And like she said, it feels good when people come to our neighborhood and leave with a positive look in our neighborhood, and they speak of how nice our neighborhood looks, and our neighbors come to us for ideas, suggestions, opinions, and whatnot. And I don't want to be the first and only. I would love to see a lot of our neighbors get recognition for what they do, because we all deserve it and appreciate what we do. And it's a good feeling just, to see that go along our neighborhoods and inspire our neighborhood and maybe other cities, people that live in other cities that want to do their own landscaping. But anywho, I just thank you once again, and I hope it continues, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Gutierrez. Are there any other requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, then we'll close public comment and bring it back to council for their communications. Councilmember Hussey and then Councilmember Allen.
I think this is a really good program, but I do have one issue, and that's with the drone flying around to other people's homes and taking pictures. I also believe on non-invasion of privacy, so if we recognize the house only that's being recognized and not take pictures of other people's backyards and their property, because I know a lot of people won't be very happy, see a drone flying around and all of a sudden, what's going on. I know there's conspirators out there, but I just think we have to respect other people's privacy on there. I think it might cause an issue, but I think, taking pictures of the properties and that's being highlighted is a must, but we got to figure something out about not invading other people's privacy. Excuse me. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Hussey. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I used the city's PIN recognition program for this, and I just thought that, we could keep it as simple. We could even just modify that. It's something as simple as modifying that program to set some criteria if that's what we needed to do. But, I think that, I can't imagine anyone who could better help us facilitate moving this program forward than our code enforcement personnel. I mean, who better gets around the city more and sees more than the code enforcement officer? And it would give the code enforcement personnel something to do while following that sweeper truck around, besides writing tickets. And so
I'd like to change it so she doesn't have to do that, following the sweeper.
that'd be great. But that individual of all our staff, I can't imagine anyone who has traveled the streets more than those people. So it's only a suggestion, and I think that also I was real pleased that the chamber worked together with us on this particular one, and I'd like to see the chamber more involved. It's a great opportunity for our business community, So, with that said, that's sort of what my idea was initially, and I don't see it needing to be anything real time-consuming. I also like the option of each council member getting an opportunity, to pick one, or residents could even advise council members, call in and say, hey, I have a neighbor who is really, impressing us. So with that said, maybe we can come up with something.
Mr. City Manager?
Yes, Mayor, and while this is a discussion today, to just bounce off ideas in terms of giving us some direction, some of the things that we should consider is to ensuring that if staff's going to be involved, that we have a set criteria that we could make sure that all the boxes are checked. So, for example, if a council member, if there were some criteria established and the council member wanted house A to be chosen, that we go by and we check off A, B, C, and D based on the criteria, and then we bring that back to the council for recognition. I also just want the council to really consider the amount of time that this might take and potentially limit the number of recognitions that you can provide individually. For example, so maybe you do 4 each per year. That way, it could be spread out over a period of time. So I would just, and everything's really on the table, we can certainly do this, but this wasn't a part of our overall plan in terms of our goals and objectives for the year, and it shouldn't take that long once we establish a criteria.
I'm interested in looking at semi-annually and making it a little bit more formalized, but also reaching out to the Women's Club, the Lions Club, Rec Center, Foundation of Grand Terrace, any other organization that wants to recognize the Chamber of Commerce. You know, there have opportunities like the Chamber of Commerce did to add to the recognition through the involvement of the businesses that want to give a gift as they did this time around. Okay. So I'd like to see a way that we involved these organizations, or again, give an option to residents that want to nominate somebody. But that would have to follow a certain criteria, as you were saying. And so there should be a nice little application process that anyone could fill out to nominate someone.
Okay, we can certainly take that criteria and come back to the council with a potential program for your approval.
Any further comments? Anyone dead set against it? All right. Thank you, Mr. City Manager, and thank you, Council Member Allen, for bringing this forward.
You're welcome, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on to item 8, which is a resolution of the City Council declaring an emergency exists that requires waiver of formal competitive bidding requirements for the Van Buren Culvert Replacement Project and award contract to MCC Pipeline in the amount not to exceed $25,320. Mr. Alan French, Public Works Director.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, council members. I'm here to present this item to consider adopting a resolution to find an emergency exists and awarding of contract for the replacement of a Van Buren culvert and authorize the city manager to execute the contract. This staff report supports 2030 goal number 2 to maintain public safety. Earlier this year, a pothole developed in the intersection of Van Buren and Mount Vernon. Staff went out, addressed the issue, and placed asphalt pavement over the pothole. Then in mid-August, the area developed a sinkhole, and that was unable to be rectified right away. So let's see here. This is staff addressing the pothole. Later, when the sinkhole was developed, sorry. Okay, yeah, this was a different presentation. Sorry about that.
Is the correct one loaded? Our AV person's controlling that. Okay, let's try that one.
Great, thank you. Okay, yes, this is the correct one. Thanks so much. As I was saying, the pothole developed. We addressed the pothole. And then in mid-August, the sinkhole developed. To be able to continue traffic flow smoothly in the area, we had to plate the sinkhole. After exploring the issue, excuse me, we discovered that it wasn't a pavement issue, but it was the pipe issue. So right now, the pipe had deteriorated over the course of the time that it's been installed. Water continues to flow into the pipe, and we expect Because of that water flowing, it takes the sediment along the side of the pipe and conveys it out, thereby reducing the pavement integrity. For sure, the continued deterioration of the pavement will occur. Because of the continued deterioration, we need to replace the pipe. Right now, Public Contract Code requires that any projects over $5,000 follow the Public Contract Code. There are exceptions to that, and in this case, should the council choose to declare the exception that this is an emergency, we would be able to move forward with the work in a timely fashion. We did obtain quotes for the work from contractors to replace the pipe, and those quotes are included in the staff report. Right, at this point, staff is recommending to move forward to execute a resolution to find that there is an emergency situation at the intersection and to award a contract to MCC Pipeline and authorize the city manager to execute the contract. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. French. I have Mayor Pro Tem Wilson and then Councilmember Hussey.
Yeah, just a quick question, Mr. French. I'm going to assume that this the corrugated metal pipe is our inheritance from county days?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's been in the ground for over 50 years. That's a lot more than what you can expect out of a corrugated metal pipe. Okay, and you're saying that you're going to replace it with RCP? Is that the most expedient way, or did you guys look at using plastic pipe, the other plastic pipe?
We did. I did get quotes for plastic, and this contractor seemed to have some RCP readily available.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hussey.
Well, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem answered some of it. You know, that pipe is on the south side, and I remember when Mr. Duffy first got hired here, we had a pipe burst on the north side, and it was actually closer to the sidewalk area, and it looked like Old Faithful that one day when it was raining really hard, because that's our big runoff.
Mm-hmm.
So besides this, are we looking into the other pipes? Because if it's over 50 years, I mean, we're going to keep on having these issues. Would it be cheaper to look at both sides on that and get them both replaced, or are we looking, that's a different one?
Yes, sir, Councilman, the south side, but you're right. So if that happened already, the pipe must have been already replaced on the north side.
I don't think the whole pipe was replaced. This was more towards the sidewalk. I have no idea. I just know that we were standing out there in the rain with cones when you first started to make sure people wouldn't walk, because the kids would have walked through a sinkhole because it's right there on the sidewalk part. It's right there by where the drain's at. So if we're having these issues, I'm sure we're going to continue to have these issues.
And in that location, there is a pipe on the north side and one on the south side.
Correct.
So this is the south side one that we looked at. The north side seems to be functioning at this point. But we could look at definitely getting that reviewed.
Yeah, because we're just going to keep on having issues. I'm just wondering if we looked at a bigger contract and see, I don't know, grants or something to get this taken care of all in one shot, or this part of our other plan, I don't know.
Well, this one, we're being asked to consider this an emergency and act on this right now.
And I know that. I was just wondering, that was just a thought, but thank you, Mr. French.
Okay. City Manager Duffy.
Yes, Mayor, much to Mayor Pro Tem's comment earlier regarding the age of the pipes of our infrastructure. You know, one of the things that we did when we started with the pothole, then it became a sinkhole, is that we had to initially get the pipe videotaped. And so one of the things we'll have to do is we need to go in and look at all of those pipes. And we'll bring something back to you for that, to come up with a comprehensive plan to do so.
All right. Thank you. Director French?
Yes.
When I'm looking at these quotes that came in, I'm seeing that there are a couple of the companies have different things that they proposed. And so One of them is traffic control that others did not include, and one of them specifically excluded traffic control. How will traffic control be put in place by the company that we have recommended in this staff report?
Well, so for the traffic control,
So you said MCC is the one you're recommending, and I believe that they specifically excluded traffic control. Yes, on packet page 207, under exclusions, survey, construction, water, boring, haul-away, video inspection, soils and compaction testing, sweepy, AC concrete replacement, permits, bonds, dewatering, traffic control, grading, fees, rock excavation. There's a lot of things excluded here. What will we be doing with soils compaction? What will we be doing with traffic control?
typically, we would be getting the soils compaction from our consultant.
Okay.
But they would be doing compaction, it just needs to be tested.
Okay, so it's not the compaction, it's just the testing of the compaction. Okay.
That's correct.
And what about traffic control?
So traffic control, that will be required.
Okay.
So,
So it will
I
not
do
be
have-
part of their bid, though?
It's not part of the 21,000, but I am asking for a 10% contingency that could cover that, that would cover that.
All right. All right, those were my questions. Councilmember Allen, did you have questions? No? Okay. We'll open it up to public comment. Are there any requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. We'll bring it back to council for consideration of a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, to adopt a resolution entitled, "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Grand Terrace, California, finding that an emergency exists in accordance with Public Contract Code Section 20168, declaring that the public interest and necessity demand the immediate expenditure of public money to safeguards life, health, or property, and making findings related thereto, and awarding a contract to MCC Pipeline Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $25,320 with respect to the Van Buren Culvert Replacement Project."
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Allen, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. Please vote.
Motion passes with Councilmembers Allen and Hussey voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNoble voting yes.
All right, thank you. Move to item 9, which is approval of Amendment 1 to the city's agreement with Interwest Consulting Group to receive additional real estate services in relation to Commerce Way Extension Project for additional $72,975 for new total compensation of $122,975. Director Alan French.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item is to execute the contract agreement, amendment number 1 with Interwest Consulting, and it supports 2030 goal number 2 to maintain public safety, goal number 3 to promote economic development, and number 4 to develop and implement successful partnerships. The city had approved a contract with Interwest in February 2017. This amendment increases the amount of work and compensation for additional properties for the Commerce Way project. The original intention was to cover the city's portion, but this amendment includes the whole alignment for the project. This will include additional properties, right-of-way or real estate services for acquisition and escrow services. Staff is recommending approval of the amendment, adding the scope and compensation, and authorizing the city manager to execute the amendment. Brett Paulson from Interwest is here. Should you have any questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
All right, thank you, Director French. Are there questions of staff at this time? Councilmember Allen.
Hey, Mr. French, on the packet page 235, there's a 80 hours at $110 an hour for relocation assistance program services, and I'm just curious who's getting relocated that needs that help. Aren't these all business entities? Is there,
No, sir.
is any homeowner residences that we're having to relocate?
There are, sir.
Hello, Brett Paulson with Interwest Consulting Group. The design work is still in the final stages. There's a few unknowns with impacts to one of the potential properties that could end up either affecting the house or access to the house. So what we did is we took the conservative approach and we put in consulting services to offer relocation services for the homeowner and potentially their tenants.
So there's a resident or a tenant in the home now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mayor, may I add to?
City Manager Duffy?
Yes, and the relocation assistance program services and the dollar amounts here, that's for the actual negotiation of the relocation. It's not for actual compensation to the resident. That's a separate issue altogether.
Correct. It's for our consulting fees to run the relocation program under the Uniform Act. Yeah, the benefits will be established once we determine there is a full relocation. There could also be a partial relocation, personal property relocation. Again, until the impacts are finalized, we'll assess those.
Right, so we're adding this additional negotiations. How is, will you be coming back to us and giving us an update on where we are with this project? Since we're not directly discussing that at this meeting, but it would be nice to have an update.
Absolutely, Mayor. And I think one of the things that's important to understand is that, this project is about the expansion of Commerce Way, from Commerce all the way down to Taylor. We initially started the project on the Gateway project. We were initially responsible for only up to DeBerry. But then we look at this in the Gateway specific plan and looking at with the Lewis Group, we're now looking at the concept for the entire Commerce Way. So there are some potential acquisitions of easements associated with that. So that's why we're coming back with, but definitely we'll be back to the council with an update on Commerce Way separately, but also with an update on the Gateway specific plan.
All right, thank you. Further questions of staff? All right, thank you, Mr. Paulson. Any request to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, we'll close public comment and bring it back to council for consideration of a motion.
I'll move, Mayor, to approve and authorize the mayor to execute Amendment Number 1 to the city's agreement with Interwest Consulting Group to receive additional real estate services for an additional $72,975 for a new total compensation of $122,975.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Allen, second by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. Please vote.
Motion passes with council members Allen and Hussey voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNabo voting yes.
All right, thank you. Our next item 10, implementation of Stop the Bleed. Is that a
Thank you, Mayor.
City Manager Duffy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On February 12, 2019, the City Council approved a process which adds Section 8H to the council's agenda entitled Future Agenda Items Requested by Council Members. The process provides members of the council an opportunity to recommend a topic to be heard at a future council meeting. Once the item is placed on the future agenda item section, then the council gets a chance to approve the request. And that's where we are today in terms of this process. On August 13th, 2019, the City Council approved a future agenda item entitled Stop the Bleed. And so one of the things that we're here today to do is to talk about Stop the Bleed, what that really means. And then we also have a local resource with our San Bernardino County Fire Department. And we have with us tonight Captain Ryan Starling. He implements the program on behalf of the county, so we'll be able to give the council some directions when they have the discussion. I was actually able to find a kind of a really concise presentation of what Stop the Bleed is. And from that, after seeing that video, we can have the discussion with the council.
Did you know that traumatic injuries are the leading cause of death for people under age 40? And that some of these deaths are preventable? Blood loss is responsible for 35% of pre-hospital deaths. And during mass casualty events such as shootings, 80% of victims are delivered to hospitals by someone other than a trained ambulance crew. Severe bleeding can lead to death in 5 minutes or less. Many people perish before an ambulance can arrive. But it doesn't have to be this way. It's time to stop the bleed. And you can be part of it. Stop the Bleed is a White House initiative that provides people like you with tools they need to take action against life-threatening wounds. In this brief video, we'll show you how to get involved.
Everything was so normal. We were just going about our day, minding our business. But then there was this noise, like a loud pop. People were running and screaming, and then I saw people just lying on the ground, bleeding.
What if this happened to you? Would you know what to do? Here are some initial pointers. Act quickly. What you do in the first few minutes is critical. Evaluate your safety. Is it safe for you to remain where you are? If not, evacuate the area. Tell someone to call 911. Apply pressure. Pressure is what stops bleeding. Let's explore the concept of pressure more. There are two basic kinds of pressure: direct pressure and pressure applied via a tourniquet. There are two main ways to tell whether bleeding is serious enough to require a tourniquet: the volume of blood and the flow. Volume refers to the amount of blood present. Think about a soda can. Cut that amount in half. If that amount of blood is present, then it's serious, life-threatening bleeding. Another warning sign is flow. If the blood is squirting, pooling on the surface, or if it's flowing continuously, then it's serious, life-threatening bleeding. In a real-life scenario, you'd evaluate the volume and flow of blood to help you make decisions.
This person's arm is injured, but it looks like neither the volume nor the flow of blood indicates we need a tourniquet. We need direct pressure instead. You, call 911. This person's injuries are more severe. There's more blood than half a soda can, and it's flowing really fast. That means I need to use a tourniquet to apply pressure.
So you've decided you need a tourniquet. What next? You need to find or make one. Two basic types of tourniquets are out there: commercial and makeshift. Commercial tourniquets are the most effective. If you're in a public facility, you may be able to find one in a bleeding control kit, often found near an AED display. If that's not an option, apply strong pressure with your hands, or use available materials like a t-shirt or towel. Tourniquets are used for severe bleeding on arms and legs, not other parts of the body. The key idea is only the limbs. Apply direct pressure to stop bleeding on other parts of the body. In this video, we'll focus on pressure applied via a commercial tourniquet. Place the tourniquet 2 to 3 inches above the wound. Be careful to place it above the injury, not directly on top of it. Then, simply pull, twist, and clip. Pull the free end of the Velcro strap, thread it through the buckle, and securely fasten it back onto itself. Twist the rod until the bleeding stops, or until you can't twist anymore. Note that this step will be painful for the injured person. Be persistent. Be sure that the bleeding stops. Clip the rod with the small Velcro strap, securing it so that it doesn't untwist. If bleeding continues and you've tightened the tourniquet as much as you can apply a second tourniquet above the first, closer to the torso. Although applying the tourniquet is simple, watch out for these common mistakes. Mistake number 1, not knowing when to apply a tourniquet. Tourniquets aren't appropriate for all injuries. Don't use it for a minor injury or on the trunk of the body. But for life-threatening bleeding on the arms and legs, don't be afraid to use a tourniquet. Mistake number 2, not tightening the tourniquet enough to stop bleeding. Also, remember to keep twisting until bleeding stops. If it doesn't stop, add a second tourniquet closer to the torso, above the first tourniquet. Mistake number 3, placing the tourniquet directly on top of the wound. The tourniquet should go just above the wound, on the side closest to the torso. Mistake number 4, loosening the tourniquet. Leave the tourniquet on until medical professionals arrive. Even if the victim complains of pain, the victim could bleed to death quickly if the tourniquet is removed. Hopefully, you'll never have to apply a tourniquet, but knowing how can save a life. Thanks for helping stop the bleed. This message was brought to you by the National Center for Disaster Medicine and Public Health at the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences.
Thank you, Mayor. And so I have Captain Ryan Starling here to provide the council with the information as part of the deliberations if they want to establish a type of program or resources that might be available for the council.
Hi, how you doing? Captain Starling. I've worked for County Fire now for 3.5 years. I was prior with San Bernardino City Fire. I'm also a reserve officer with San Bernardino Police Department for 10 years on their SWAT team as their tactical medic. So I do both sides. Councilman Allen reached out to us to the Stop the Bleed campaign. We've been doing this for about 6 years with County Fire under Chief Mejia in the guidance of that. And what we try to do is we reach out to the community, we reach out to the council, city employees, and we offer our services as far as educating them on bleeding control. A lot of the stuff with the video is a great video, and things have already even changed since then. So all we try to do is offer our services to educate the community, because our response times are way above national average with our fire department here in Grand Terrace, with the city, with Fontana, and all the adjoining cities we cover. But the first line of defense is the community. There's multiple hundreds and hundreds of cases where community members have saved lives until we can get there. A person can bleed out in less than 3 minutes. So we know that, and the first line of defense is the community. So we want to educate as many people as we can as possible. It's not just active shooters either. It's everyday occurrences, and we teach a lot of the schools, we teach a lot of the members. Somebody can be hit by a car, and they could have uncontrolled bleeding, and it takes us 3 to 4 minutes to get there. And that bleeding can be controlled by a citizen walking by as a good Samaritan, and that's who we want to educate. Somebody could fall off a ladder. There's all kinds of occurrences that can happen where you can have bleeding that's uncontrolled that we want to stop. So our job is just to educate the community and educate different cities and staff that is seeking that knowledge. We have everything available to us. We have over a $100,000 mannequin that is state of the art. I think there's only 2 in the state that is around. So we have an unbelievable resource as far as getting hands-on, and it's about building confidence. And that's what we found over the last 6-7 years is building the confidence. I've been involved in 2 active shooters myself with December 2nd and our North Park school shooting. So I've seen it firsthand. So our staff that we have of about 20 guys can deliver firsthand knowledge and it's a lot of question and answers. A lot of people don't understand it. And by the end of the class, within about a 3-hour class, they have the confidence and they can get in there and they feel, and we get a lot of response emails saying, thank you so much, my kid fell out of the tree and I was able to apply a tourniquet until the fire department got there, and I really believe I saved their life. And those are the success stories that we like. So this is the program that we'd like to offer to not only the staff here with Grand Terrace, but also out to the community on the basis of how you guys would like to implement it.
All right. Thank you, Captain Starling. When you normally offer these classes, do you do the setup for the classes and take the registration, or is that something that you partner with another entity to do?
We bring all the stuff out. We have a trailer with the mannequin, the PowerPoints, all the tools you need. We just ask that we limit it to about 30 people. We can do larger classes. It's easier with about 30 to 35 people, and we can do 3-hour blocks. So we can offer up to 3 classes a day, depending on that, whatever the needs are for the agency that we're doing it for.
Okay, so you ask that another entity does the scheduling
Yes,
and
the scheduling.
takes the reservations?
Just give us the time and the dates, and we can make it happen. We just ask for like a 30-day prior notice, and that way we can set up for staffing availabilities through our staffing.
All right, thank you, Captain. Questions? Councilmember Hussey.
Hey, Captain, thank you for everything you do, too, being a first responder. Do you know how much one of the Stop the Bleed kits run, the cost?
It varies on what you want to have in the kit. I know the kits that they're providing for the malls, they average between $250 to about $450, depending on how many you want. Normal kits, they have 4 tourniquets and 4 clotting agents. They're called Quick Clot, or different companies offer them. But normally there's 4 of each in there, and those are run anywhere between $300 to $450.
And do you know the shelf life for each kit?
The tourniquets don't have expirations. The Quick Clot normally anywhere between, the new ones actually have like 10 to 15 year shelf lives on some of them. So I think you pay like an extra $3 or $4 for those, but it's well worth the time, or the expiration time, versus the other kits that you can pay $3 less and they expire in about 3 to 4 years.
So do you, besides local governments having those kits, churches, you recommend religious centers and any, the school districts, of course. Do you know if our school districts have those kits?
I'm not sure on the school districts. I know we've been working with Grand Terrace High School. We've done actually a drill there for a lot of the teachers, which was about 6 months ago. A lot of the other cities that we've worked with, they are implementing this. I know the state's looking at passing a bill, and by 2024, I believe, to have it in certain size occupancies along with the AEDs. So it'll follow the same guidelines as the AEDs. It's a resource that you might only use once, but it could potentially save multiple lives.
Yeah, I worked at a federal prison. I know about all the bleedings and stuff, but yeah,
Sir.
it's definitely when you have it all there on hand. And we used to carry the little kits on our belt, the gloves and everything. But all right, well, thank you. Thanks
Thank you,
again
sir.
for your service too.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Allen.
When we met, I just wanted to point out that Councilmember Hussey, whenever I met Captain Starling over at Grand Terrace High School, one of the things I was pleased to learn was that at the high school, they're already teaching this program, this Stop the Bleed training, through their Explore program. And after the discussion that we had in our little meeting, the plan, I understand, is now they're going to try to integrate it into their curriculum as an elective, and I think that's great. I think that sometimes in the past we've underestimated the abilities of our youth. I found it interesting to note that the state of Washington requires students who graduate from high school to pass CPR, and I think that's great. And our kids learn that too over at the high school. I think that's great. This, the Stop the Bleed program is a great opportunity for our community to provide some training and to keep our residents safer. And I'm also pleased that our chamber is wanting to become involved in it too and partner with us. Thanks a lot, Captain Starling, for coming out here, and Chief Media for facilitating this.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions? City Manager Duffy.
Yes, I don't have any direction. I need to.
I know, we're going to go to public comment, as would be.
Yes, ma'am.
As would be, okay. Are there any requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, we will close public comment. We'll bring it back to council to give direction to staff. What direction shall we give to Mr. Duffy on this item? Councilmember Allen.
So my vision, of course, when we first discussed this, my idea was at the end stage that our public venues would have these Stop the Bleed kits available. Public buildings, and even when we have public events in our city parks, these kits would be available in conspicuous locations for, if we had Grand Terrace days or whatever might be going on there. When Councilmember Hussey was talking with Captain Starling, and he mentioned, churches and places where the public gather, those are the places where I envision we would have these available, and that our residents would eventually, a lot of them, be trained on this, and that we could use our schools and the students in our schools to help train the other students in the other schools. That's how it's been done in other areas and that I was reading about. And that's how I envisioned it here in Grand Terrace over time. So I don't know what kind of direction one needs, to offer.
I have something to offer. I would like staff to come back with a proposal for what it would cost to have not only the Stop the Bleed kits, but the AED kits in all of our city buildings. And if there's an opportunity to reach out to the faith-based communities for getting them involved in training this, and how much staff time do you think that this would take? Councilmember Hussey.
I agree, and especially our anywhere where there's a lot of people, it's sad because I do security at our church, and I'm authorized to carry, because I'm retired, and it's sad what's going on. But I was just wondering, like in our faith-based communities, because I know sometimes funds are limited, if we could implement our community benefit fund to help them purchase these kits. And also, don't forget the senior center too on that.
I was considering that was a city building. So.
Yeah, and that's why I was just wondering if we could do something like for the religious thing, if we could do the community benefit fund, if they do have a problem buying these kits, or where the mayor said come back with a price and stuff. So that was just my thought on that part.
Mr. Duffy?
So Mayor, one of the things that I think the city does very well is partner with the community. And so in this particular case, we have a resource and with the San Bernardino County Fire Department. And then we also have at least 2 meeting rooms. We have the community room and also the senior center that we could possibly host different events. So my thought process is I'll come back with information that aligns the resources, and then that maybe what we can do is we can offer, based on the fire departments as a resource and our centers as an opportunity to train first organizations that they can come in. And in addition to that, we can look at what the costs are for these different kits, ensure that our facilities are outfitted with the Stop the Bleed kits, and then try to find some opportunities, like maybe through our community benefits grants or anything else, find opportunities for other organizations in the city to have outfit their facilities with the same. So those would be the parameters I'll come back with, if that's okay with the council.
Anything further? Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 11, which is implementation. Oh, no, we already did that one. Implementation, appointment of a 2-member ad hoc committee to discuss Colton Joint Unified School District and City of Grand Terrace Joint Use Agreement. Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. As the council knows, that the City of Grand Terrace and the Colton Joint Unified School District exercises their right under California Education Code 10900 for community recreation programs. And so we have a joint use agreement with them. And the joint use agreement is administered by the superintendent and also the city manager. But in that process, we share different facilities, like our pool that we have an agreement on, and hopefully we'll get a redesigned pool. That's one of the things we partnered on. The other opportunity, there should be a third slide there somewhere. There we go. Is our middle school soccer field, which we've worked very closely with the school district, and they've revitalized recently. And so one of the things that we're trying to do as the superintendent and I is that we're looking at some additional opportunities, but those discussions become almost policy issues. And so we'd like to have an opportunity to, when those discussions need to occur, that we have a standing ad hoc committee that he will work with the school district board on, and I would work with a council-appointed ad hoc committee. So the action before the council tonight is to appoint 2 members to an ad hoc committee that would meet based on the demand of pulling that group together.
All right, Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Questions at this time? All right, seeing none. Are there any requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. I'll bring it back to council. And I'm going to ask if Councilmember Allen and Councilmember Hussey would like to be on this.
Well, Mayor, I'll tell you, I'm already, he and I both are part of the community cabinet for CJUSD, so I can't speak for him, but I'd be happy to serve on that ad hoc committee.
Yes, I would like to do it.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any objection to that? All right. So I'm going to make the motion then that we appoint council members Allen and Hussey to the 2-member ad hoc committee and ask if there's a second.
I'll second myself.
All right. Second by Councilmember Hussey. Please vote.
Motion passes with council members Allen and Hussey voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor McNamara voting yes.
All right, requests for future agenda items. We do not have any. Mr. City Manager, do you have communications for us tonight?
Yes, Mayor. Just a quick reminder to the council and the community that Community Cleanup Day is going to occur on Saturday, October 5th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. That's an opportunity for the residents to bring in their bulky items and those items that can't fit in the trash can that you need to get rid of. In addition, there's going to be a shredding event from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. So remember, and also bring your ID or your trash bill to be able to drop those items off. Next, we have a blood drive. It's going to occur on Wednesday, October the 9th, from 1:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. In the council, in the city's community room. And so we strongly encourage you to contact the Red Cross and make a reservation to come on in and donate blood. Next, there's going to be a sign up for CERT Emergency Response Team Training Program. It's a community emergency response team. CERT is a 3-day FEMA training program specifically structured to train volunteers on how to respond safely. And as most people know, Grand Terrace had a CERT for a number of years, and they've recently reestablished it over the last 2 years. And so CERT really is keeping in the spirit of Grand Terrace, which is strong in neighborhoods and community activities. So when and if something happens in the community, it's really good to have a strong CERT team to be able to assist the first responders. And that train is October the 12th, 19th, and 26th. If you have any questions, you can call City Hall and ask for Sandra Molina, or anyone in City Hall can be able to point you to the right direction so we can talk with you about participating in that program. And I think with that, Mayor, that completes my remarks.
Will CERT be the first to have the Stop the Bleed program if we decide to go that route?
I would imagine so, yes.
All right, thank you. We have no closed session tonight, and so we will adjourn to our next regular City Council meeting to be held on Tuesday, October 8th, 2019 at 6 p.m. Any request to have an item placed on a future agenda must be made in writing and submitted to the City Clerk's office, and the request will be processed in accordance with council procedures. We are adjourned.